and welcome. This is 360U Dialogue here on your favorite Crime Watch station, Third Eye Africa Television. I am Juliet Omura. So good to have you join us here today. The trending story that has gone viral, I mean, it's more than viral now. It's more like an issue. The xenophobic attacks on African migrants in South Africa. A lot of people have comments to say a lot of people are being repatriated, even down to the FIFA World Cup. A lot of people were saying, oh, they don't deserve to be in the FIFA World Cup. They don't deserve to play. They should kick them out immediately. All these affect the livelihoods, the union of Africa. And on this particular issue, we have come to talk on the recurring xenophobic attack in South Africa. This is not the first time it's happening, and we keep seeing it reoccur and resurface after a while of, calming down. We're looking at the legal rights angle to this. We're looking at legal rights of Nigerians facing xenophobic attack in South Africa. Groups of Nigerians have repatriated thousands in their numbers, have repatriated from South Africa to Nigeria. The federal government is doing justice to that. And on that, I have here a visiting professor at the National Human Rights Commission. She's a legal practitioner, and she's going to take us through the legal parts, the legal rights of Nigerians living in South Africa. I have here Vivian Madu. You're welcome, Ma.
Thank you so very much.
So good to have you join us here on 360U Dialogue. Just right to the xenophobic attack, I just want to get your own perspective. Let's get personal on that. What's your personal perspective on the xenophobic attacks?
First and foremost, I would want to share with the viewers the background for us to understand who are these people, the South Africans, and why are we where we are, South Africa suffered many years of apartheid, under which, they felt deprived. And after, even when they gained liberation as an independence, so to speak, they still were like strangers and visitors in their own country. And I have personally visited South Africa. I had been there on trainings and all of that. And then when you relate with South African natives, you cannot but be surprised at what you're seeing. Because of the many years of apartheid, they have suffered a lot of psychological deprivation. So you see a lot of average or below average South Africans always have the victim approach to life.
Okay.
They see themselves like second fiddles, they see themselves servitudes. In Nigeria, for instance, no matter how poor your parents are, once you are able to break through that jinx, maybe even a secondary school education, you will find that there's so much confidence you exhibit. But there, that is not the case. They feel so inferior. Maybe the class system between divergence between the whites and the South Africans. So you find that not too many South Africans are able to break the jinx. In Nigeria, for instance, you find a child born to a very poor family, farmers, the parents are more or less peasants, but yet they produce medical doctors, they produce lawyers, they produce children who break the jinx, and so they change the circle of the family. But that is not the case in South Africa. You find them, it's difficult to get them as professionals. You find them mostly work as peasants. They are always cooks, they are stewards, gardeners, drivers, and so they marry among that circle. And because psychologically they already feel deprived, their children feel the same way, they are laid back, they feel government is against us, so there is no need to struggle for anything. And so that is the foundation to why these xenophobic attacks are. They are idle, they are laid back, they are not well educated, their parents are not there. In Nigeria, for instance, when I attend parties, you see waitresses. They don't need so much education to just stand on tables or whatever, but they carry themselves with a lot of dignity. They carry themselves with their shoulders high. But you don't see that in South Africa. You don't even need an introduction to know that this person is a housekeeper.
This is them in their country.
Yes, they are so. I also, when this whole xenophobia thing started, I had to reach out to some friends, Nigerians I have back in South Africa, to be sure they are safe. And then you get different perspectives.
Okay.
Some of them will say, oh, because we got into South Africa as professionals, as expatriates, we don't live where they live, we are safe where we are. So you see, it's actually a class system, a class society. And so these people who feel that government or the bourgeoisie, the elites are taking everything away from them, turn around and attack maybe foreigners who come without papers, because if you're a foreigner, you don't have your papers, you won't live in the same place with the elites. It's just like here in Nigeria, you have those who live in the Maitama areas and you have those who live in the suburbs. So if you don't have your papers, you would not also qualify to do the class job, call it class job. So you would just find yourself middled in the middle of the peasants, so to say. But again, because let's talk about Nigeria, and I'm bringing it back to Nigeria. Nigerians are known to be industrious people. They are people who break barriers, who break odds to cut across, change their whatever stigma, poverty, educational disadvantage, or whatever. They are able to walk the extra mile to break that jinx. So wherever they find themselves, whether South Africa or anywhere in the world, they thrive. Now, because in South Africa, they have grown with that psychological defect that they are nobodies and they cannot amount to somebody. The father is a gardener, the mother is a housekeeper, the child has little or no education, he becomes a teenage boy, laying around, loafing around at 20, nothing. Then a Nigerian guy gets there at about the same age. He starts with a small petty shop. And then his small petty shop grows into a supermarket. Now, everyone wants some level of comfort in life. The South African girl will not now find the South African boy attractive. Because the South African girl does not also want to live life the way her mother lived life. She wants better life. She
also wants to break.
Yes, she wants to break. So now the other guy from Nigeria, Malaysia, wherever you call it, that is a foreigner in South Africa, who is working hard to earn his living, approaches her, she will fall for him. So at the end of the day, the case of their deprivation is, rather than getting better, it's getting worse. Their women don't even want them because they are lazy. They want the world to pity them. They are out of appetite, but they still live with the appetite
mindset
mentality.
of appetite.
Yes.
Okay, still on that, let's establish the reoccurring, because so far from your perspective, I've seen that this reoccurring deprivation mentality that South Africa has been able to build because of their apartheid regime and all that, their history on apartheid background. Is this the reoccurring measure or factor that keeps them in that circle? Because before we got set, you talked about culture and religion, not just about South Africa, but other countries, including Nigeria. And now here you're speaking on South Africa with that mentality of deprivation. Is this what keeps bringing this xenophobic attack on and on?
Honestly, yes, that is the answer. And
core answer.
Yes. Although government, I understand government, South African government is trying to take steps to try to help their people. For instance, like I said, when we started hearing of the civil unrest, I had to reach out to my people to be sure they are safe. And surprisingly, I have a very close, we were roommates back in the university. And the husband, he's been in South Africa for more than 20 years. So they are well off there. They had all their kids there. But I was amazed when she said they had to bring the child down to Nigeria to attend the university. And what was the reason? That's part of the things South African government is doing to strengthen their people, is that certain courses are no longer available to foreigners.
Oh, interesting.
So she opened my eye to another dimension to it. Now she said her daughter wants to become a medical doctor, to study medicine. And in South Africa, they won't give her that opportunity. They will probably, even if she's better than the other indigenes in terms of scores and academic exposure and background, they probably will offer her microbiology or some other less competitive costs. So that way, they are indirectly, their system indirectly, systematically creating room for their people. I probably would liken that to what we have in Nigeria when we talk of quota system, educationally advantaged, catchment areas, and all of that, the federal character. You know, you have to consider, you know, inequality and, you know, the finish race. If you're putting two people, a disadvantaged person, disabled person, physically challenged person, to run a race with an able-bodied, you know that it will be inequitable and unequal for them to start at the same start point.
Exactly.
The one who is physically challenged may be given some advantage, mileage, and so that they have about the same finish line for it too. So what is equality for you may not be equality for the other person, depending on their advantages and standing in the society. So I think that's what their government is doing, to encourage them, and then to now, because the truth be said, at the helm of affairs in South Africa, those who were the perpetuators or the beneficiary of apartheid are the ones who tactfully are still in control, because they are the ones who are well educated and exposed and enlightened. And then some other persons are like the mixed blood. For instance, again, don't forget that at the end of apartheid, the Britons, the Indians, all the settlers who were involved in gold mine and all, they were not asked to leave South Africa. They were all treated now as citizens with equal rights with the South Africans. So you see again where the inequality is coming from. Yes, they are not dehumanizing the indigenous South Africans anymore, but they are the ones who have the head start and mileage.
So
if maybe over the years, with what the government of South Africa is doing right now by trying to safeguard certain professional courses for their indigenous, maybe that would, those who are able to aspire, that may give them that edge to break through.
For their indigents.
But that psychological trouble, it's a whole lot of problem, because unfortunately, how would I put it now? The bourgeoisies in South Africa, the foreigners who are now citizens, will not ordinarily marry them. So they continue to circulate among themselves. So part of the things to break that, if only they are smarter to know that xenophobia is not the way out. In fact, foreigners coming to live amongst them and marry them would have been a great advantage to break that jinx. But unfortunately, because of what they are and who they are not even seeing that advantage.
So this goes beyond illegal migrants in their country and them wanting illegal migrants to leave their country.
It's just complex. Complex that has gone a higher degree into mental health challenge. You know, it's not everybody who's clothed and that is actually mentally stable.
Exactly. So legally speaking, is South Africa fulfilling its obligation, constitutional and international obligation, to protect foreign nationals?
I guess you and I know the answer. You know, whatever is happening in South Africa, it's not in isolation. South Africa is not in isolation. We have beautiful laws, like our Nigerian Constitution provides the fundamental, under Chapter 4, the fundamental rights. You know, in Section 33 talks of the right to life and all the rights to dignity, freedom of expression, movements, and all of that. How many of them do you enjoy? Now we have the Cyber Crimes Act and all of that. And when you say something anti-government, they just come and, what has happened to your freedom of expression? So what evil you are seeing happening in South Africa, come back home to Nigeria. Don't we have, it's just that we are not calling it xenophobia. We are not after foreigners. But the government, yes, the president, we listen to him on TV. He seems to say, no, it's not, he's not in support of xenophobia. But what affirmative actions has he taken? We see videos, clips everywhere on social media. You see their police, you see the rioters, you know. They've been very dehumanizing sight we've seen where women were stripped naked. You take their human dignity, you rob. In fact, if I have the time, I would begin to roll out the sections even under South African Constitution that prohibits, that protect human dignity and prohibits any act that would, undermine the humanity in you. So they look, is it the issues of health we are going to talk about? We've seen this, do they call them vigilantes or whatever now? We've seen them go to hospitals and insist that if you're a foreigner, you will not get medical care. Is that not against your right to life? And they even go as far as now, their vigilantes that are enforcing the xenophobic attacks and all of that, go as far as now asking anybody that by either your color, your language, disposition, they just suspect this is not South African origin. They immediately begin to ask for your visa. They begin to ask for your stay permits. And God help you, you could just become a victim of mobbing. So
you made mention of...
And who have we heard of them being persecuted? Sometimes you see even their police watching, standing by and doing nothing. Not even a mere tear gas to ward them off. So it means that they are really indifferent.
Speaking of indifferent, does this mean that the South African laws that you wanted to mention right now, it doesn't play when it comes to foreign national, or it's just like in Nigeria, we have laws. These laws, does it also play to international guests, foreign nationals in the country, or it just applies to the only people entitled to this right are South Africans?
You see, like I've said, the challenge has never been the law. The laws are always, you try to put the best things to protect the rights. But the challenge has always been the enforcement of that law.
Okay.
Protecting the citizens with the law. The law is not meant just for South African citizens.
Okay.
The law did not, in making specific provisions on the South African Constitution, it did not say this Constitution is applies strictly only to South African citizens.
Okay.
Like, for instance, issues of right to human dignity, right to life, does not talk about who is a citizen, who has a paper to stay, legal papers to stay or not. But, all of this now depends on the political will of the government of the day. Perhaps if he was a different president in power, and, again, that takes us to things we call international treaties. Countries collaborate with other countries for certain mutual benefits. Perhaps, MTN in Nigeria is a South African company. ShopRite is a South African company. Perhaps it's time for Nigeria to begin to negotiate. If perhaps we have strong trade agreements binding Nigerian government with South African government or any other African country that is a victim of xenophobia, then perhaps withdrawals, certain denials. Because those South African businesses in Nigeria, they repatriate their money, their profit to their government, their country, South Africa. Directly or indirectly, DSTV is a South African company. So if, for instance, Nigeria begins to think of exploring their international treaty obligations, their bilateral contracts. So when you enter into certain contracts, you tie them to certain conditions. It's just like under immigration law, we have what we call reciprocal agreements. You see that countries that require us to pay so much to get their visas, under reciprocal agreements, Nigeria will also require their citizens when they are coming to Nigeria to do business to pay as high. The law of reciprocity, comes to play here. So I think in terms of international relations, Nigerian government would now begin to tighten and think of how do we deal with, don't forget Nigeria played a role to fight for South Africa under their years when they were under apartheid. And have we been fairly treated reciprocally? Have we gotten fair treatment from South Africa after their liberation? So I only think at this point, the strong remedy that is available to Nigeria and other African nations will be to look at our international treaty agreements. Because South Africans cannot sell their food to themselves. They can't plant their produce, harvest their produce and eat it alone. And so when other nations begin to realize that we can stiffen our policies against them, we can, you know, if our people are not welcome to them, their businesses are not welcome to us. I think when they begin to suffer losses, economic loss, then there will be pressure, some subsequent pressure from either the business beneficiaries on their own government, and then government will take more affirmative action. You know, because what is being done in South Africa can be curbed. It can be curbed if perpetrators are actually arrested, prosecuted for their crimes.
Now, speaking on persecution right now, who does the persecution? Their government or our government? When I mean our government, do our government call them to book? Like you said, put in stiffer treaties and agreements on trade and all that? Or are we just going to, that brings me to the point where I want to ask, for victims of xenophobic attack, some have repatriated, and this have caused losses to them, both family. There was this lady that she was bitter. She was really crying that her husband got shot. And just like that, that's it. So there's no way she can actually seek compensation. So how can the government, our government or their government, bring perpetrators to justice? How can we seek compensation for the victims?
Okay, originally, it is the victim of crime that has the locus to sue.
Okay.
You know, when an injury is perpetrated against me, say something has been stolen, my property has been stolen, my property has been destroyed, maybe my means of livelihood. Originally, the original concept of crime is that I am the victim. I have the right to sue, you know, for justice against the perpetrator who has perpetrated that against me. But again, now, because what we are talking about now, it has also taken us to like collective injury, another class of injury. No longer an individual injury.
Exactly.
So it's now a collective injury, a group of people. And then because South Africa has entered into certain treaty agreements, like the ICCPR, you know, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, South Africa can be dragged to the African court for justice.
Okay.
So these persons who have suffered injury, so that way, the judges are not the judges presiding over the matter are not indigenous South African judges. The matters could be even taken to the International Criminal Court of Justice, the Hague. Yes, where we are able to prove loss of human life, and you know, beyond just. But again, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands too. You know, we shouldn't also overlook the fact that Nigerians are almost becoming a nuisance everywhere they go.
Okay.
So that is something we also need to look inwardly and advise ourselves, speak to ourselves. Because if we continue to leave our nation as illegal migrants, you know, I had watched a clip where some of the people perpetuating the xenophobic attack had to ask the people they met in the shopping mall, where are you from? This person says, I'm a refugee. Yes, even if you're seeking refugee status. Like, you know, sometimes you go beyond emotions and sentiments. You really are a refugee, and the most reasonable thing, if you are deprived and you lost your home, say in Borno, as a result of banditry or insecurity, Boko Haram attack or whatever, where is the nearest place to Borno? Who are our nearest neighbors? If you're found in Cameroon, we would understand that. If you're found in Niger Republic, we would understand that. Our nearest neighbors, because actually you're given the impression you lost everything to civil unrest in your country, but somebody who has lost everything to civil unrest is able to take up a plane as in
To
pay a
South
ticket,
Africa.
ticket to all the way to South Africa, and you say you're deprived, you're a refugee. No, let us face facts and reality.
That's funny.
No, so you put yourself on harm's way, the truth be said. So I think our people, we really need to begin to think of how to make our own nation work. If we go, the truth is, Nigerians, we have our problems too. We are too lackadaisical. You go to public offices, civil servants, they just take it like as if it's Father Christmas money. They are not diligent, but when they are outside Nigeria, they are diligent. They want to keep 2-3 jobs. And they work so hard to make a lot of money. Why? Because they are placing value on the dollar. When you exchange the dollar, you bring it, repatriate it back home. I will do this, I will do that. Why don't we come back and make our country work?
Indeed, that's a good call. That's a good call there. But speaking on bringing to justice, because you made a statement that he who must come before, I'm not a law student, but I think I can quote that. He who must come before a court must come with equity or something like that.
Your hands must be clean.
Yeah, your hands must be clean.
You must have shown yourself to have done the right thing.
Exactly.
You have not run foul of any law. For instance, if in the course of prosecution, they bring up evidence to show that you are a drug peddler. You have a good case, albeit that it doesn't also give them permission to take the laws into their hands anyway.
Exactly. That brings me to the point of, can the government be held liable when it comes to the international court? Because let's say, because now it's now a collective thing. It's no longer a victim now we're talking about. It's a collective thing. And let's say we bring it before the international court. Can the government be held liable for xenophobic attacks?
Yes, definitely, because you could, where you're able to prove that governments turned a blind eye and did nothing about it, then they will be held responsible for compensation in damages to the victims of the crime, the xenophobic attack.
So let me ask.
But again,
okay, go on.
You know, most times nations don't want to, because of sovereignty of nations, don't want to interfere in the internal runnings of other nations because of whatever benefits, political goodwill. Okay. So all of those things are also dependent on Nigeria. What do we stand to lose or benefit from South Africa? Do we want to maintain a relationship?
What have we really gained from South Africa if we must look at this?
I wouldn't know.
Because you made mention that Nigeria has actually, historically, Nigeria has actually done a lot for South Africa. And looking at how they are doing this, aside trade and all that, looking at how the xenophobic attack is reoccurring, I don't think there is no need, or there is no way we shouldn't be asking or putting, or our government should be putting out there for their government to be, what's the right word now? To be put in order when it comes to xenophobic attacks. You
know, okay, let me just help you here. I think what you are looking for is to get some kind of punishment for the perpetrators, some kind of compensation for the victims. And you're thinking of how to get the government involved. But I would rather say that the way to go, it may not come from government. Government may be reluctant to be involved because it has not affected Nigerian government, but it has affected individual citizens who have different, either they left as illegal migrants and all of those stuff. So now the other way, alternative to go is through civil liberty organizations, NGOs, who would, like I understand Femi Falana has approached the African Court of Justice for some of these victims. So that probably could just be a very strong remedy for the victims. They could come by way of, now that they are repatriating them, they could come by way of collective actions to approach. And then, you know, government, again, you could approach the National Human Rights Commission of Nigeria. Okay. And then we will begin to dialogue and then see the possible options, because we all belong to, we are all parties to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. That's right. And we have the courts, the African Court of Justice, also before even the International Criminal Court of Justice. Exactly. So before I ask, there's a question in my mind I would have asked in the beginning, but before I ask that question, beyond diplomatic engagements like repatriation and all that, and, you know, trade
treaties and all that. What legal role should the Nigerian government play beyond evacuating its citizens? Because you already mentioned that it may not be possible for the government to, sue South African government, but what other legal grounds can the
That's
government?
That's what I've just answered. The Nigerian government will not the presidency, but there are agencies of government that are saddled with the responsibilities to look into things like
And
this.
do you think they would look into this?
Definitely, definitely.
Thank you so
and
much
I just
on that.
mentioned the National Human Rights Commission could be approached.
And which you're from. I would want you to say something more on that. But before then, is xenophobic attack a criminal?
Although, to clear the air, like I said, state sovereignty is also another issue,
Okay.
So even when you are approaching the National Human Rights Commission, it is not for the National Human Rights Commission to sue South African government. So don't get me wrong.
Okay.
It is for them to enter into some form of negotiation, diplomatic conversations, dialogues, and then to see a possible compensation for victims. In the light of the international treaties parties have entered into and their international obligations.
Okay. I get that right. I mean, it's important to know really what the government can do and what agencies can do and what everybody can do, because I think with what you said, it's a collective thing. It's not just, it's your problem, you victim. Why would you go there illegally? So it's a collective issue because we all bear the flag of Nigeria. And the question I wanted to ask in the beginning is to know if xenophobic xenophobia, is it a criminal what's it called, act, or a human right act, which demoralize human beings? I don't know if you get my question.
You want to know if xenophobic attacks are crimes on
Yes,
them?
a criminal
Okay,
act.
if I'm going to answer you straight up, I will tell you that xenophobia, there is no criminal law or code that has, every country has a criminal code or criminal law. In Nigeria, we have the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, and the states have their Administration of Criminal Justice Law that would first of all define what is a law, and what is a crime.
Okay.
So if by South African law, criminal law, xenophobia has not been defined as a crime, then plainly it's not a crime.
Okay.
But so we will then seek and go beyond municipal law. So maybe international law. What does international law describe? The acts that have taken place. Then that is when you will begin to then find xenophobia in its word is not a crime, but life has been deprived. Deprivation of life, right to life, is a crime. Because the law provides that no one's life should be deprived of him under unlawful circumstance. So if a person had been killed because of his color, because of his race, because of where he comes from, then it is a crime. That's the crime now, is deprivation of life, unlawful deprivation of life. Then the human dignity. Like I said, the word xenophobia is not codified anywhere as a crime, but the acts that come together to constitute xenophobic attack are individual. Some of them could be civil wrongs, while some of them are actual crime. For instance, you break into a person's property, you loot the person's shops, you take away electronic gadgets and all of that. That is stealing, is a crime. You have destroyed the person's property, is a crime. But there are other things that could also, under xenophobic attack, be just maybe civil wrongs. So it depends now. You begin to itemize which of the acts were you a victim to now identify under where it should fall in.
So in tackling this particular xenophobic attack, the government, South African government, if at all they get any perpetrator, would actually face this when it's broken down based on the perpetrator's act.
Yes, If the act the perpetrator has committed is a crime under the South African government, and then there is reciprocal agreements, treaties that countries enter into, where the South African government can actually try the person in South Africa, or the person can be repatriated from South Africa to Nigeria to be tried. Where the act was either perpetrated in South Africa or part of it was perpetuated in South Africa. For instance, there was a mob action, and people were serious bodily harm. Injuries were inflicted on them, bleedings and all of that. The part of the act started in South Africa. The person has been repatriated, and 3-4 days after getting to Nigeria, the person finally dies. Yeah, it was just mob action in South Africa, part of it. So if Nigerian government and South African government have a bilateral agreement for that kind of, then either the crime could be tried in South Africa or the person be repatriated to Nigeria to be tried for the crime committed.
Indeed. Thank you so much for breaking that down. But it's at this point we'll take a break and we'll be back with more here on 360U Dialogue. Do stay tuned with us. Welcome back from that short break. You're still here on 360U Dialogue, only on Third Eye Africa Television. If you're just joining in, we've been having a wonderful conversation here with Vivian Chukwudumebi Madu. She's a visiting professor at the National Human Rights Commission and a very, very, very good hand when it comes to legal issues here. We have been talking on the recurring xenophobic attacks in South Africa, and we'll be looking at this from the legal standpoint. A lot have been said, and let's go down. Let's go to the international law. We've been making mentions of international laws here. Let's talk about international law. What does the international law talk about? What does it provide? International human rights treaties, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. What does it provide when it comes to xenophobic attacks?
For starters, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights provides that everyone has the right to the dignity of the human person, irrespective of citizenship. So whether you're a citizen of the country or not, so long as you're a human, your rights, the dignity to your human person is a fundamental right provided for under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And then the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, from which our Nigerian Constitution derived its fundamental human rights in Chapter 4, starting from Section 33, which provides for right to life. They have reciprocal provisions under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And I want to just roll out some of the sections being violated under this xenophobic attack. Some of such sections, Article 3, Article 4, Article 5, Article 12, Article 14, and Article 28. And then these articles on the African Charter on Human and People's Rights provide for equality of human persons. Equality of human person considers no color or race or place where you're from. And then you have the dignity to life, you know, your human dignity. We had seen videos of human beings who had been stripped of their human dignity, stripped naked. That's a violation of the provisions of Article 5 on the chapter on African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And then your right to life is also provided for under that charter. Your freedom of movement and the right to own property. And even we owe each other the right to solidarity, to sympathize with one another. All of these have been provided for under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. And most of the violations we have seen under the xenophobic attack has run foul of these provisions.
You know, speaking of running foul of all of this provision, literally almost all of them which you've mentioned, can the African Union, because the African Union brings the entire Africa together, can the African Union sanction or bring South Africa or any other African countries found guilty of xenophobic attack or breaking these charters?
I don't think it's the African Union now we are looking at now in terms of this. There is the African courts.
Okay.
Just like you have the International Criminal Court of Justice at The Hague, you have the African courts, you know, where persons, these victims themselves can actually file their action. They could approach the African courts for redress, to seek redress for some of the violations they have suffered. For instance, if you had paid a landlord in South Africa for a property to do your business, you had entered into a lease agreement for 10 years, and now because of the xenophobic attack, you have been repatriated back to Nigeria. and your rent is still running for the remainder of 9 years, you have just spent only 1 year, you are entitled to get your 9 years payback and damages. You know, you have suffered. You could approach the court, the African court for that.
And that's on one sanction that the victim themselves can actually go to seek redress on.
Yes. That's part of the kind of things the victims. And then under the criminal law, you know, that varies now from country to country.
Okay.
And it also depends on where you're instituting your action, your course of action. For instance, you know, what we will provide for, we have the criminal code in Nigeria, we have the Administration of Criminal Justice Act in Nigeria, and they have stipulations, sentences for different crimes. Is it stealing? Is it murder? Is it? But again, let's not forget that most countries have abolished death sentence and replaced with life imprisonment. So if in South Africa there is no for killing, if their laws do not provide for death sentencing, then it could just be life imprisonment, whatever. It depends on where you institute your action, actually. Where you institute your action will determine the remedy that will be available to the victim.
All right. In that case, it's...
But again, like I said, again, a crime that was committed in South Africa, you cannot institute your action in Nigeria because the crime, locus inco, where the crime was committed, has to, you know, should be ordinarily, ideally, where you should institute your action. But again, that takes us back to our first segment where we talked of the government of the day. And so, honestly, I wouldn't even advocate for either any victim to institute their actions in South Africa or Nigeria. Rather, they should approach the neutral place, which is the African court.
Indeed. That's a good point there. In some instances, we've seen illegal migrants being ill-treated, like you said, their dignity being taken away, women being stripped naked. How can the law, I'm talking about both the Nigerian law and the South African law, balance immigration enforcement when it comes to protecting human dignity and fundamental rights?
You see, like I said before, he who comes to equity must come with a clean hands. You don't say you're seeking refugee status when you know you're actually lying. You're just looking for greener pastures. You're just looking for an escape from home, you know. And then what still is, you don't even have any status at all. You don't even have any paper. You went there on a traveling visa. You're on tourism or something, and your visa has expired, and you're now there as an illegal migrant, you know. Volunteer non-fit injury. You don't put yourself on harm's way and say harm should not happen to you, that your rights, you have rights or whatever, when you first of all compromise your right. So for starters, I'm always an advocate of do the right thing.
Okay.
Do the right thing so that the law will protect you. For instance, if you are a documented migrant, a legal migrant, and all of the attacks and all of you've suffered lots of harm, you can actually start your action in South Africa because you have a right as a citizen, as equal as a citizen. You have a legal right to pursue. And then if the South African court does not do you can, by way of appeal, you can escalate the matter. But the summation of all of these issues is that even at the African Court of Justice, if the country is not willing to enforce the judgment of the courts, there is little or nothing much that can be done, rather than maybe like things like sanctions. You know, I'm sure you will recall under the military regime, especially that of late Sani Abacha, Nigeria, the killing of Ken Saro-Wiwa, Nigeria was sanctioned. You know, we were denied certain privileges. You know, so those are the kind of things that maybe will be coming the way of South Africa in the event they are dragged to the African courts to enforce the rights of these persons who have been dehumanized. And South Africa will be under obligation to compensate those people, but where the government shies away, then sanctions, they could be slammed with sanctions, like denying them participation in World Cups and all whatnot, you know. Just remain, be your island and remain with yourself and remain there. Since you don't want others, we too don't want you, the world does not want you. That is the much I think can be done.
So when it comes to, in my take, yeah, let me just put something here. When it comes to fundamental, protecting human dignity and fundamental rights, whether they have the legal grounds to be in your country or not, I don't think it's, you made the point already, I don't think it's a ground for them to be dehumanized.
No, certainly. Nobody is saying that it's a ground to be dehumanized, but we're just saying protect yourself so that you will be on right standing. You know, like what I said earlier, he who comes to equity comes with clean hands. You know, the truth be said, it's just that we are shying away. I talked about the backgrounds of the South Africans. The truth be said is that a lot of migrants, especially illegal migrants, do a lot of shoddy things. They are into drugs. They are into a lot of crime. No nation will actually fold their hands and watch you run down their country. It's just that they are going about some of those things the very wrong way. After all, Nigeria had once said Ghana must go.
True. And Ghana left.
So we should seek better ways, more civil ways to go about the things we want to do. Nothing says, you know, that takes me to something I want to share now. I did my national youth service with the Nigerian immigrations. And so that exposed me to some immigration laws. And that is what actually they should be falling back on, South African government. If you feel people are in your country illegally, why do you have your immigration law? Repatriate them. When I served in Nigerian immigration, I know that they had various commands. They had alien. I served in Lagos, and then it's one of the big commands. And in Lagos, then they had not less than 10 commands. You know, they had ECOWAS, and then they had people who were almost like police officers, immigration officers. But they go into the field. They go look for the expatriates and check whether you have your, you know, you have exceeded your expatriate quota. You even have your papers at all to be in the country. It's just that corruption is everywhere. Because sometimes too, you give paper to one Chinese and the Chinese brings them, because they all look the same, they bring in every other on one person's paper and documentation. And that is also similar to what some of our people who go out of the country beyond South Africa also do. So but in all, that does not permit you to take the laws into your hands or, you know, deny, humiliate human beings, you know, treat them as if they were less humans because even though they are illegal migrants in your country. And there have been some, although not in large scale, there had been cases where even the xenophobic attack had been against legal migrants. People who even have proper documentation. But maybe they were just at the wrong place. At the wrong time.
So let's talk on solutions here. What legal and policy reforms are necessary? We're talking about prevention, because seeing it reoccurring. What legal and policy reform are necessary to prevent future xenophobic attacks and strengthen regional integration in Africa? We're talking about sustaining the bilateral ties between Nigeria and South Africa here.
Okay, the truth be said is the South African government acknowledges concerns over the issues of illegal immigration and and condemns the xenophobic attack. The president also has spoken that he's against vigilantism, which is what the people who have grouped themselves together to commit this xenophobic attack are called vigilantism. However, we expect the government to do more, take affirmative positions in terms of prosecuting those who have been indicted. Their images are in public sphere. They didn't go masked. Their identities can be identified if government actually wants to do the right thing. And then they should go. The South African government has a right to go after those who have breached their immigration law. That is what is open to the South African government. And then I would just want to conclude that legal issues that will arise from those who have been wrongly treated, the South African government should not be biased. In the case that those who have been wrongly treated seek legal redress in court, the world, they should know, South African government should know the world is watching them, and the world wants to see that they are fair and unbiased. So for those who can afford legal to provide legal aid and to get lawyers to enforce their rights, we'll encourage them to enforce their rights and see that the wrong that was done to them is rewritten and corrected, so that it serves as deterrent. Otherwise, there will not be an end to it. And you know, today, South Africa is xenophobia against foreigners, but it will get to a point when there is no more foreigner, you will fight yourself.
Exactly.
And then if they don't look inward at maybe at some point we had what we called free education in Nigeria. They should do everything it will take them to employ their people, empower their people, even if it's skill acquisition, even if it's grants. So they are taking off the streets, because they say the idle mind is the devil's workshop. So that is where I would leave it now for now.
Thank you so much. I mean, you've pointed out from a psychology standpoint to a legal standpoint. Thank you so much, Ms. Vivian, for coming and joining us here on 360U Dialogue.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me here.
Same here. To our viewers, you are watching 360U Dialogue, and this wraps up our edition today on the recurring xenophobic attack. And like our guest has rightly said, this is beyond just illegal migrants. This is beyond just South Africa. It's a double thing. It's South Africa, it's Nigerians. Nigerians, we are not to go to South Africa illegally to find greener pastures. And South Africa have to do justice and right by persecuting offenders. And that wraps up our episode here at 360U Dialogue. Keep watching Third Eye Africa Television. I am Juliet Omura.